My beloved child, there are moments when you look around your life and think that I am silent, that I stand far away, that I let everything drift as if I no longer care. And it is precisely in those moments that I wish to whisper into the deepest place of your soul, I have never abandoned you for even a single second. My slowness is not indifference, nor is it complicity with what is wrong. It is the rhythm of a love that knows exactly what requires time in order to be healed. My patience is an expression of love, not abandonment. And if you judge only by the surface of events, you will assume that I am motionless, when in truth, I am working more deeply than you can perceive. Picture a river flowing around a stone in the stream. It does not roar or shatter. Yet through the passing years, it quietly shapes a new form, gentle, but enduring. My patience is like that water, flowing around the sharp corners within you, not to crush you, but to polish the hardness you cannot see in yourself. You often rush to demand answers, demand miracles, demand signs right away. But you rarely see that I am giving you a greater gift, time for your soul to discover where it actually stands. If I granted everything you asked for in an instant, you would mistake me for a switch that satisfies desire, not the one who loves you enough to guide you away from the path of self-destruction. My patience is never permission for sin. It is a gentle, yet resolute invitation for you to turn back before consequences become irreversible. I know there are moments when you misunderstand my long endurance as a ticket, allowing you to delay repentance, as though you could continue compromising and still always have a tomorrow to make things right. But my child, tomorrow does not always open with the same opportunities as today, and it is because I love you that I use patience to awaken your conscience before the door closes. My mercy is not a veil that covers the truth. My mercy is a soft yet honest light that shines into the corners you have skillfully avoided for so long. You have heard this word, the kindness of God leads you to repentance, and that is not just a sentence written on a page. It is the rhythm of my heart beating for you. I do not begin with a whip. I begin with my gaze, with gentle reminders, with pauses of silence that force you to face yourself. When you feel restless inside, even though everything outside seems calm, that is not meaningless discomfort. It is an inner bell letting you know that I am knocking. If you call it emptiness, then that emptiness is not abandonment, it is space I create so you may speak truth to me, truth to yourself, and truth to those you have hurt. I am patient, but that patience always carries a purpose to pull you back from the edge before your foot slips. Consider a good teacher who does not rush to scold when the student has not yet understood, but sits down, repeats, explains, waits for the spark of comprehension to appear in the student's eyes. That teacher does not treat slow understanding as a reason to give up, but as a chance to draw closer, to find the approach that matches the learner. I am like that with you. I do not abandon you simply because you change slowly, because you repeat the same mistakes, because you still wrestle with old habits. I sit beside you in the invisible classrooms of the soul in conversations with your conscience. In nights when you lie awake knowing you have gone farther than what pleases me, I do not shout in your face, but neither do I stay silent so you will think everything is acceptable. I set before you small moments, stories, words from others, sudden circumstances that force you to pause and ask, am I being called back? Every such moment is a lesson, and my patience is the way I refuse to walk out of the classroom even when you wish to flee. I wait for you to understand, because what I seek is not obedience born of fear, but obedience born from a heart convinced by love. However, you must know that this classroom does not go on forever in the same form, for love also has its discipline. If you turn away every time I speak, if you intentionally ignore every warning sign, my patience begins to take on another face. the face of consequences I allow to come near to awaken you. This does not mean I stop loving you. Rather, it proves that I love you so much, I cannot allow you to imprison yourself in deception while still believing you are safe. The gentle river flowing around the stone is not there to proclaim the stone harmless. It reveals a force more persistent, more silent, and impossible to resist forever. When you use my tolerance to prolong your stubbornness, you place yourself where eventually your own choices will weigh upon you. I do not create those outcomes as cruel punishments. They are already woven into the structure of reality so that truth cannot be distorted forever. My patience creates space for you to notice what is coming, to turn around before the wave rises, not so that you may continue challenging the current. If you hear in time, those consequences become testimonies of grace. If you ignore them, they become late warnings. But even then, I can use them to open the path home. Therefore, when you feel I am slow to respond, when every reminder seems to repeat itself, do not hastily call it meaningless delay. See it as the sacred space between two breaths where you may choose a new direction. My patience is the bridge between the life you are living and the life you are called to become. It is not a soft couch for procrastination, but a door open to repentance before the other doors close. If today you feel your heart being stirred, if some deep place within you recognizes that this word speaks to you, then this moment is the hour of grace, not a vague threat about the future. Let my patience not become your excuse to delay, but your motivation to kneel in honesty. Name the things you have avoided. Step out of the shadows of justification and into the light of confession. When you do, you will see that on the other side of patience is not the fist of punishment, but the arms of the one who has waited longer than you ever knew. And you will understand, my patience has never been a void for stubbornness, but a safe space for you to return before anything becomes irreversible. There are times when you look at your life and see only fragments of failure here. A door closed there, a relationship fractured, an unfinished dream, and you quickly conclude that everything is against you. You look at the narrow present as if staring at a painting with only a few strokes and hastily declare it chaos. But I, the one painting, do not see only the corner where you stand. I see the full canvas you have not yet reached. I am patient not because I abandon you, but because I know you do not yet have the perspective to understand what I am arranging. You live in days, in hours, in moments, while I weave your life across seasons, across years, across memories you have already forgotten. If I explained every detail at once, you would be overwhelmed and confused. So I choose to walk with you piece by piece, like a guide who knows every bend that the traveler has not seen. When you rush to judge the present, you forget that your eyes are limited by fear, by memory, by wounds that have not yet healed. But my eyes see past what you call dead ends, and I know they are only curves. My patience is the space that keeps you from being crushed by what you do not understand, and keeps you from being indulged in the illusion that every choice is harmless. I am patient because I know the painting is still being made, and I do not want you to give up when you have seen only a few early strokes. You often complain that you cannot see the road ahead, that the future seems hidden behind a thick fog, yet you rarely recognize the grace within it. If I were to illuminate everything at once, you would chase the destinations you believe to be important and forget the one who walks beside you. That is why I do not place in your hand a blazing torch that reveals the whole horizon, but a small lamp bright enough for the next step. That light is not ostentatious, but it is enough to keep you from stumbling over what lies beneath your feet. When you anxiously demand to see the entire journey, I invite you back to the simplicity of the next step. Every time you choose to walk by the small lamp instead of demanding a complete map, you are learning to trust me more than your calculations. I do not want you to live in obscurity. Yet neither do I want you to be seduced by the illusion of control. I use step-by-step light to teach you that safety does not lie in knowing everything, but in walking with the one who knows all. My patience is expressed in my willingness to move slowly at your pace, illuminating segment by segment, instead of dragging you along the hurried rhythm of the fear that grows inside you. There are times when you look back and scold yourself. Why am I so slow to change? Why do I repeat the same mistakes? Why am I not as strong as others? In those moments, you assume that I look at you with the same condemning eyes, but I remember what you often forget. I know you were made from dust. I remember your weakness and your limitations. As it was written, I know your soul is not a machine that can be reprogrammed with a single command, but soil that must be plowed, seeded, watered, and waited upon before anything sprouts. That is why I am not disappointed with your process the way you are disappointed with yourself. I am not surprised when you stumble. I only look to see whether you will let me lift you. My patience does not obscure the truth about sin, but neither does it deny the truth about human limitation. I am patient because I see the potential I placed within you, and I know how many seasons it takes for those things to mature. You see a bad day and call it the end. I look at that day and call it a lesson. I want you to understand that when I delay an answer, when I do not immediately open the door you hope for, it does not mean I am measuring your worth or playing a silent game. I am protecting you from building your life on shallow ground. If I grant what you ask while your heart is still shallow, the blessing will become a burden that tilts you off balance. I let the small lamp lead you through slow steps, so that with each stretch of the road, your roots grow deeper into me. You may see only narrow paths and uneven terrain, but inwardly, I am quietly rearranging your priorities, purifying your motives, reshaping how you view yourself and others. My patience is the framework of time given for you to mature, not merely to modify outward behavior. I do not want you to fear consequences. I want you to love truth. I do not want you to avoid evil out of dread. I want you to hate evil because it injures love. And for your heart to reach that place, there must be rhythm, repetition, evenings of internal struggle, and the slow realization of my soft yet profound invitation. When you stand in the twilight of decision, you will feel pulled between two sides. One is your old habit. The other is the call to step into something new. There, my patience becomes the space for you to truly choose, not to be forced. I do not impose decisions upon you. I invite you to collaborate with me. If I blocked every consequence immediately, you would never see the deeper nature of what you pursue. But if I withdrew entirely, you would be swallowed by what you did not foresee. So I remain there, holding and releasing at the same time, like someone carrying a lantern ahead of you, turning back occasionally, waiting for your eyes to meet mine. My patience is not so you may keep postponing, but so you have enough time to realize that postponement is draining your soul. Every morning you are awakened is another opportunity to see all things in a different light. Do not call my patience an empty gap. Call it the breath of grace that keeps you from drowning in your own darkness. And when you start to see a wider picture, even just a little, you will know it was I who led you beyond the limits of your old sight. There are moments when you look at my silence and assume I approve of what you are doing, as though I have grown tired of correcting you or no longer care about your choices. But my silence is not agreement. It is the quiet space where your heart may hear itself again. My patience has never been synonymous with my endorsement. If I wished, I could close the door the very moment you stray, as a sudden downpour washes away footprints on the ground. But I do not do that, because I do not want to cut you off from the chance to return. I leave the door open in the rain not because I want you to stand outside forever, but so you may turn back when you realize you are cold, soaked, weary, and on the wrong path. I do not mock you from inside the house, nor do I rush out to drag you back by force. I simply keep the door open, letting the light spill outward, waiting for the moment you are brave enough to knock again. That patience is not an invitation to prolonged stubbornness. It is a gentle offer to the soul exhausted by the choices that wound itself. You think that if I truly loved you, I would chase after you, shout your name, and pull you away from the edge. But love is not always a loud cry. Sometimes it is a whisper soft enough that only the one who longs to return will hear it. Consider a father watching his child leave in anger. He does not lock the gate, but he also does not run after the child to wrestle in the storm of emotion. He stands at the doorway, not because he is indifferent, but because he knows the child will learn nothing if they have not yet faced their own heart. If he drags the child back while they still want to run, the wound within only deepens. So he lets time wash the fog from their eyes. He lets the distant roads make their knees tired. He lets silence speak when every piece of advice has been refused. My patience works the same way, not as abandonment, but as a refusal to use force to stop you. I do not want you to return because you are afraid. I want you to return because you discover that apart from me there is no true peace. When you insist on going far, each passing day is not a sign that I am pleased, but a final invitation you have not yet taken. Patience is the light shining from the house onto the porch where you stand shivering after long rain. You may pretend not to see that light. You may blame everything around you. You may convince yourself you are still fine, but the light remains unchanged. It is not so bright as to blind you, nor so dim as to disappear. It simply waits for you to turn your head. I do not shut the door to punish, because closing it too soon would crush your soul into despair. I do not drag you back, because dragging you would rob you of the most beautiful act you can perform, a conscious step of return. You must understand that my patience is the foundation of your freedom, not the place where you abandon yourself. You often confuse patience with indulgence, as though I simply stand and watch to see how many times you will stumble. But that is not its nature. I open the door in the rain because I know there is a moment when the cold will remind you of the warmth that once held you. When you stand outside, your body trembling, your mind filled with fear and regret, I do not ask harsh questions such as, "Why did you do that?" or "Did I not tell you?" I simply let the light reveal the way back. I do not erect giant warning signs. I do not build iron fences. I do not shout through the storm. I place before you a choice: come back inside or remain in the rain. It is that choice that nourishes a heart that listens and matures. I know that repentance has value only when it is born from freedom, not coercion. And if you ask, then what happens if I do not return? I will not answer with punishments or promises of thunder. I will simply tell you that the rain will continue to fall, the wind will continue to blow, and the cold will seep into places you once believed yourself immune. It is not because I am against you, but because this world operates according to natural consequences. Whoever stands outside the shelter will get wet. Whoever remains in the dark long enough will lose their sight. Whoever stubbornly stays in the rain, thinking themselves strong, will eventually grow exhausted. I do not send the storm to teach you a lesson. I simply do not shield you from what you have chosen to embrace. Just as a father does not drag his child home, I do not push you away either. I let you choose, because there is no return more beautiful than the return born from the heart, recognizing where it belongs. There are seasons when I give you silence longer than you expected, not to abandon you in a fog of confusion, but so that you can hear your own voice echoing in depths the noise usually drowns out. That time is not a dark chamber for stubbornness to hide, but a quiet courtyard where the soul can face itself with nowhere left to run. I do not press you with strong winds, nor do I urge you with burning fire. I simply open a still space so that you may grasp something simple but profoundly important if you refuse to speak to the truth. The truth will find its own way to speak to you. The silence I give is not a ladder for your pride to climb, but a calm surface of water where even the smallest ripples of the heart can be seen clearly. When you step into that silence, you will hear the breath of your soul you have long lost while running away from me. You will see the small scratches on your conscience, the words you never said, the moments you justified yourself to hold on to what I asked you to release. I do not give you time to build barriers around selfishness. I give you time to dismantle each brick of arrogance, each habit constructed out of fear, each callous formed by words that never accept responsibility. Remember the story of the prophet Jonah. I did not throw him into the storm to crush him, nor did I let the fish swallow him to imprison him in darkness. I gave him 3 days in its belly, a period without any exit outward, only a doorway inward. No one heard him. No one applauded. No one argued. He had only me. And the truth he had avoided, he fled, my call with reasons that seemed justified to him, but were not justified to his soul. I did not destroy him the moment he ran, nor did I force him back by strength. I gave him time, but that time did not come to pamper his stubbornness. It came to expose it. In the damp darkness, Jonah confronted what he could not face when he was still standing in sunlight, that his escape did not only exhaust him, it dragged others into the storm as well. And when he understood, I did not keep him there another day. I commanded the fish to release him on the shore, for the purpose of time had been fulfilled. The silence I give always has purpose, not to punish, but to separate you from the noise long enough for repentance to appear. You think delay is proof that I have forgotten you, but you are mistaken. I am simply waiting for your heart to ripen in readiness for what I am preparing for you. Imagine a garden after rain. The soil cannot absorb all the water in an instant. If I sowed seeds the moment the storm ceased, the sprouts would die from drowning. I wait for the ground to drain, for the sun to dry it, for the surface to soften again. My patience exists for your life, not for meaningless delay. But if that soil your heart insists on holding the water, remaining closed, refusing the sunlight, it will never become a place where seeds can take root. The time I give may make you feel safe even while far from me, but only if you use it to deepen understanding, not to add new layers of armor to protect your pride. You may tell yourself, I still have time, but if all you accumulate in that time is arrogance, you are not moving toward life. You are standing on the threshold waiting for a fracture. There will come a moment when you ask, why do you not do something stronger? Why do you not intervene the moment I lose my way? And my answer is not found in anger, but in a quiet truth. I respect your capacity to choose. I do not want you to return as a prisoner pulled back, but as a child who sees the light and decides to step into it. The time I give is not to nourish stubbornness, but to help you recognize the worth of freedom. I do not seek souls who follow me out of fear. I seek souls who return because they have realized I am their peace. If I broke every barrier you built just to drag you home, you would never learn how to loosen the very cords you tied around yourself. I let you live with consequences within their proper measure, not to harm you, but so you can hear your own heart once the illusion of your self-sufficiency has worn off. Understand this: my patience is an open hand, not a cradle where you sleep comfortably in obstinacy. I place you in silence so you may discern which voice is mine and which voice belongs to your ego. If you continue to use that time to reinforce your defenses, to consolidate self-satisfaction, to justify pathways leading into darkness, then time ceases to be a gift. It becomes a mirror reflecting what you refuse to see. I do not close the door, yet I will not keep the lantern burning forever at the porch if you insist on prolonging your turning away. There are moments in which you must understand that I am inviting you, not through signs and wonders, but through the very absence of them, because I want you to return not merely to escape pain, but because you remember that true peace exists only in me. There are days when you look to the sky and believe I have turned my face away, when your prayers drift into an empty space with no response. You hear the footsteps of others around you, see them receive answers, while you must wait in a silence that feels endless. But my silence is not a sign that I have abandoned you, nor is it agreement with the path you have chosen. That silence is the breath I grant, so your mind must stop, so your heart can hear its own rhythm, so you may feel the boundaries you constantly try to ignore. When I do not speak, it is not because I do not see, it is because you are not yet ready to hear. My voice is not a shout that drowns every noise, it is a whisper recognized only by a soul that has learned to sit still. In returning and rest you shall be saved, in quietness and trust shall be your strength. You once read those words, but only in the silence I give will you understand they are not a slogan, but a key that unlocks the door of maturity. My silence is not like the abandonment of human beings. People fall silent when they do not care, or when they want to see you fall on your own. I am silent when you need to learn how to listen to what cannot be learned amid noise. A child learning to walk always longs for the steady hand of an adult, but if that hand never lets go, the child will never know how to stand on their own. I walk beside you like that. I lift you when you collapse, but I do not intervene in every shaky step, so that you may feel the weight of your own body. Only when you understand that the ground beneath you can make you lose balance will you begin to cherish every time you rise again. The limits you discover are not failures, they are maps showing you where you need me. The silence I give is a lesson so you do not lean on my words as a crutch, but lean on me as the ground beneath your feet. If you know me only through immediate responses, you will never know me through the endurance of grace. There are souls who think silence is complicity. When I do not sweep away the darkness at once, they think I accept it. When I do not destroy every toxic bond the moment they plead with me, they assume I have withdrawn. But I do not spoil you with miracles. I do not break what you are unwilling to release, because in doing so, you would never learn the sovereignty of your own heart. I allow you to see your limits when you exhaust yourself pushing a door that was never meant to open, so that you understand your strength was not made for those walls. I allow you to realize that silence is not emptiness. It is the space I create for you to gaze into your own soul, what you cling to too tightly, what you fear losing, what you lack the courage to name. If I shattered the darkness for you, you would know only deliverance. But when I am silent and you face it, you will learn wisdom. Look at the sailor on the sea. When storms rise, he searches for favorable winds to set his sails. But there are regions of water without wind, without waves, only a vast mirror of stillness. The sailor narrows his eyes toward the bow of his ship, yet the bow does not move. He thinks the sea has turned against him, but it has not. The sea is simply showing him that movement does not always come from the outside. Sometimes stillness is a reminder that there are terrains not traveled by strength, but by waiting for the right moment. My silence is the same. It does not drown you. It teaches you how to swim. It does not pull you to the seabed. It makes you see that deep waters require calm, not frantic struggle. Sometimes I still the wind so that you do not fall into the illusion that every success is the product of your own effort. There will be days when you want me to break the silence just so you can feel safe. But you must know that safety is not the highest goal. Maturity is. I want you to become a soul that can stand before challenges without collapsing when my voice is not whispering in your ear. If every step you take is built on immediate reassurance, you will never learn how to walk in faith when the world shifts beneath you. The silence I give is not absence. It is another kind of presence, a presence that forces you to look within, to listen to the parts of you that tremble, and to admit I am not enough without you. When you discover your own limits, That is not your failure. It is my beginning. There are seasons when I let you walk gently and waiting, like sunlight resting high in the sky, offering enough warmth for you to continue without fear, enough comfort for reflection without freezing. But just as the sun dips beneath the horizon, not out of anger or rejection of the world, but because all things move according to the rhythm I established, the time I grant you also has boundaries. The sun does not ask the earth whether it is ready, it follows its appointed course. I am the same. I do not close doors because I have ceased to love you. I simply complete a cycle of grace when your heart repeatedly rejects the light I have given. You cannot lie beneath the sun forever if you keep turning your back when I call. Light does not disappear because it hates. It merely steps aside for darkness when you insist on closing the doors of your heart. I am still there, but no longer as the light that invites, rather as the shadow of the consequences you have chosen. The time I spend teaching you is like a lesson in a classroom. The teacher lectures, explains, illustrates, asks questions, and walks alongside the students, step by step. But then a moment comes when he closes the book and says, "Now it is your turn." He does not abandon his students, nor does he despise those who still struggle to understand. He simply allows each soul to face the knowledge they have received. In that moment, the attentive remember every word, every example, every gentle gaze that guided them. The careless feel empty, but that emptiness does not come from the teacher's silence. It comes from a heart that refused to open while there was still time to learn. I am the same. When I let you enter the time of testing, I do not disappear. I simply place you before the truth. What will you do with the light you were given? The words I spoke in previous seasons are not decorations. They are foundation. Silence is not punishment. It is the moment when you prove whether you will live by what you have heard, or continue to run until the bitter fruit falls into your hands. I know you fear darkness. You think the withdrawal of light is proof that I have closed my heart. But my child, if I kept the light shining even as you turn away, I would become the enabler of your spiritual numbness. The light I give always has a purpose that you may see the path. If you close your eyes when I shine, the light becomes a burden to your soul. I do not allow the light to become meaningless simply because you refuse to use it. I do not close, my love. I only close, for a time, the door of active grace so that you may feel its absence and understand its worth. Just as dusk settles and the trees remain standing, the earth stays warm, and the creatures of the forest quiet themselves. I want your heart to walk through the dark so that you may see that light is not something you can take for granted. I do not grow bitter when the sun sets. I only teach you the lesson of cycles. And when you step into that night, you will have two paths. You can use it to remember the sunlight that covered you every day, or you can use it to declare falsely that I have abandoned you. Those who see clearly will understand that night is only a phase. Those with hardened hearts will say the sun never returns. A heart that rejects the light is not a heart unloved. It is a heart unwilling to love in return. I do not withdraw my hand to prove my power, but because you are proving the power of your will. Love cannot be forced. I have pulled you from the abyss many times, but I also know there are depths from which you must see the bottom for yourself to understand that I am the ladder, not the excuse for you to jump. Do not fear the moments when light is withdrawn. They are not signs of my disdain, but reminders that love is not a wall shielding every reckless choice. When I allow you to feel consequences, it is not because I have ceased to love you, but because you have wandered so far that soft whispers no longer awaken you. I have spoken through light, through words, through tenderness, through quiet signs in your life. When all these are brushed aside, I allow the darkness to speak. Darkness does not have my gentle voice. but it knows how to reveal what you refuse to see. It is not the final judgment. It is simply the last mirror still able to reflect. There are choices you believe to be harmless, just a slight step off the path. A thoughtless word. A small action to satisfy the restless self inside. You assume I would intervene immediately if it were truly dangerous. And when I do not, you believe you are still fine. But I am not a gatekeeper who blocks your way at every moment. I am a patient teacher who allows you to learn from safe missteps. I let you feel the weight of a mistake on a small scale before it becomes a deep fracture in your soul. Just as a mild dose of medicine teaches the body how to resist illness, consequences that are just enough cause you to reflect without collapsing. I let you taste a bitterness that is bearable, so you may realize you cannot keep drinking from a polluted stream while still hoping to preserve peace. It is not because I want you to suffer, but because I know that without that lesson, you would walk into places where pain can no longer be reversed. You often ask why I do not warn you with thunder, with a blazing sign across the sky. But I have warned you through small missteps that make you stop. Through the times you trip when you are running too fast toward what does not belong to you. I do not want your soul to live in a hell of catastrophe before realizing it has strayed. I want you to recognize the signal in the small scratches, the discomfort when your conscience is pulled, the disappointed glance from someone you trust, the hollow feeling after a careless word slips from your lips. These things are like a brief stomachache. It does not kill you, but it makes you stop eating what made you sick. If I shattered every mistake the moment it appeared, you would grow up without the ability to sense danger, and faith would become dependence on miracles, not maturity in me. Imagine a teacher teaching students how to swim. He does not throw them into the bottomless deep, but he also does not let them remain on the shore, practicing breathing forever. He lets them step into water that reaches their knees, lets them feel the chill, the unsteadiness, the weight of the water when their legs lose their balance. They shake, but they do not drown. They panic, but they still feel the ground beneath their feet. That feeling is the mild medicine. I give you a lesson learned early so that you may understand the ocean can be beautiful, but it can also seize the soul. Small consequences teach you to pause, to look around, to take a breath before the storm approaches. If you learn this lesson in shallow waters, you will know how to protect yourself when you must swim farther in life. Sometimes you blame me and ask why I did not stop you before you acted foolishly. You say, "You saw it coming, why didn't you stop it?" But, my child, if I halted every step you attempted to take, you would never learn that wisdom is not something placed into your hands from the outside, but something that blossoms within the soul when it encounters reality. Mature protection does not come from hiding behind me in every situation. It comes from recognizing the warning signs while the storm is still far away. I do not create consequences to shame you. I allow them so you may be safe before you walk into fire. A minor pain can save you from a deep wound. A small fall can keep you from the abyss. This is how I safeguard you, not with chains, but with maturity. Remember this, I take no pleasure in your small failures. I see them like vaccine injections, sharp but necessary, so your soul will not be ravaged by the disease of complacency. If I let you walk through life without a single collision, you would think yourself untouchable, and when you finally faced something truly great, you would collapse because you had never learned how to stand back up. I choose the gentler way, lessons painful enough to awaken you, but not enough to break you. And when you realize that those small wounds have taught you courage, you will know I never abandoned you. I was preparing you for roads your soul has never walked before. There are days when you view yourself through the lens of a single stumble, as if the entire journey has crumbled because of one moment of weakness. You forget that I do not judge you by the slice of a moment, but by the continuous current of your soul. One misstep may hurt you, but it does not destroy the path I have laid beneath your feet. The path is not erased because your footprints veer off. It remains steadfast, waiting for your return. Like a traveler who strikes a small stone on the trail, pain flashes for an instant, but the journey continues. The stumble is not the end, but a gentle reminder. Look at the ground. Slow your pace. Respect the weight of your own steps. I do not see you through your latest mistake. I see you through the capacity you still possess to rise. If a single slip were enough to destroy your direction, humanity would have no room left for hope. I also do not let you be deceived by moments of success. One correct step, one wise word, one kind act, these do not turn you into a hero, nor do they encapsulate my meaning in a single, brilliant moment. Like someone adding one brick to a foundation. That brick matters, but it is not the whole house. I do not allow a moment of brightness to become the place where you raise a monument to your pride. If you treat a small victory as your new pinnacle, you will enter life like someone building a new Tower of Babel. A single breeze will be enough to sweep you off the ground. I limit victories so you remember that glory is not the goal, but the fruit of long faithfulness. One right step is a thank you to me for listening, not proof that you understand everything. Learn to see life not through dramatic peaks, but through the simple rhythm of each step. Look at the martial artist. He does not become a master because his first strike was perfect. He makes mistakes. He misses blows. He loses balance. But every fall teaches him where his center is. Every missed strike teaches him how to move his body. It is the small failures that weave competence. Rising again is not blind stubbornness. It is acknowledging your limits and continuing with your eyes open. The precious lesson is not in the perfect kick, but in the hundreds of failed kicks he has tried. I train your soul in the same way, step by step, breath by breath, so that you may know stability is not a talent, but perseverance when others have already given up. There are souls who lose themselves because they believe that one fall means everything is ruined. They say, if I still stumble, then I am unworthy. But if I required perfection from you before I walked with you, not a single person could take one step. I let you fall within a safe boundary so you may know that my love does not depend on achievement. I allow you to rise so you may understand that your worth is not found in never having failed, but in never abandoning the search for me in the midst of failure. When you stumble, I do not turn my face away. I extend my hand from the depth of your heart. I do not say, why did you fall? I whisper, try again. And when you rise, I do not say, now you are perfect. I say, now you understand why each step must carry humility. Do not let the world define you by a fall or a leap. They do not fully reflect your soul. They are only beats within a long song. Many people build imaginary staircases, either absolute success or disastrous failure. But I did not create you within such extremes. I build you through each moment of awareness, each gentle correction, each instant when you turn your gaze back to me instead of staring at your own mistakes. I see you maturing not when you run like a victor, but when you walk like a student who knows there is still much to learn. You always have the right to rise, because I never close a door over a single wrong step. You always have the right to keep going, because I never build an altar of praise over a single right step. Walk on, my child, one step at a time, without haste, without despair, without illusion. I walk with you in every beat, not to judge, but to guide. There are souls who believe that change is a whip striking down, a shout of intimidation, a sudden storm that forces them to their knees in pain. But the truth is far gentler than that. I do not conquer you by pressure, I awaken you by light. True change does not happen when you are forced to obey. But when you begin to see what I desire you to become, a seed does not burst out of the soil because someone yells at it. It grows because it feels the sun. I know your heart is weak and sensitive, and that is why I use awareness instead of coercion. Force creates fear, but awareness creates freedom. When I lead you into the light, I do not rip away the curtain like a tyrant, exposing secrets. I draw it aside little by little so that your eyes can adjust to truths your heart was not yet ready to bear. The truth will set you free is not the blade of an axe coming down. It is the key opening a door long locked by the fears you have clung to for too long. Awareness is like the morning light streaming through the curtains, never invasive, yet enough to awaken the soul. If I dragged the full sun into your room all at once, you would be blinded and curl back on yourself, trying to hide again in the familiar shelter of the dark. I do not want you to run from me in shock. I want you to come to me out of longing. That is why I reveal truth at the pace your heart can receive. No one stands before a mirror for the first time and sees every scar all at once. Truth comes like the tide. It touches the rocky shore, recedes, then returns more gently, until the strands of seaweed long hidden beneath the salt finally appear. I do not force your soul to strip off every layer at the same time. I wait for you to remove them one by one, as you begin to understand why they need to come off. When change is born out of fear, you act only to avoid pain. You quit smoking because you fear disease, not because you love life. You stop lying because you fear being exposed, not because you cherish truth. But when change comes from awareness, you move because you have seen the beauty of freedom. You abandon violence because you have seen the strength of compassion. You lay down selfishness because you have discovered the joy of lifting others up. I want your soul to live out of that awareness, because it endures. One who is forced will behave only while the chains are on, but a soul that has discovered truth remains free even when no one is watching. Awareness is the strength of the mature. Coercion is merely the discipline of those who refuse to grow up. Imagine a thick curtain covering a window. If you yank it away, the sudden light will make you turn your face, and your heart will shrink back like a frightened bird. But if you pull it aside gently, little by little, as each ray of light filters in, you will see dust dancing in the air. You will see the lines in your own palms. You will see everything that has always been there, but stayed hidden. That is how I work with you. I do not claw at your heart to carve holiness into it. I slowly remove each layer of fear, each old habit, each lie you once told yourself. I know you were formed from dust, so I do not demand that you become a flawless jewel overnight. I know there is a seed of light within you, so I patiently wait for it to sprout in its own appointed time, not according to the tempo of human hurry. There are times when you wish I would force you to change so that you do not have to face yourself. You want a thunderclap, a major crisis, a collapsing bridge that forces you off your old path. But that kind of compulsion would only produce compliance out of fear, not transformation of the heart. I do not want you to tremble before me as a harsh judge. I want you to come to me as your source of life. When you change because you feel threatened, you will live only to avoid punishment. But when you change because you have seen the light, you will live to sow light. That is why I do not build my teaching with whips but with pictures of freedom. Not with dry prohibitions but with invitations into peace. My child, know that I never rush you from silence into storm just to make you change. I lead you through open doors so that you may walk by your own feet. I let you encounter truth in portions so your courage will not be eroded. You are not pushed, you are led. You are not forced, you are invited. And when you finally realize that I do not want you to live with your head bowed, but with your face lifted, you will understand awareness is the power that liberates, while coercion only creates souls who fear the dark yet have never dared to love the light. There are souls who, when confronted with consequences, tremble and assume that what they are facing is the slap of wrath, the thrust of a blade of punishment, the decree that they have been abandoned by me. But my child, consequences are not retaliation. They are the mirror set before the soul so that you can see what you once refused to acknowledge. I do not use a sword to punish you. I use truth to lead you back. When you walk in the wrong direction, consequences are the crossroads I have placed on the road not to harm you, but to teach you to stop. A child who puts a hand on a stove may be burned, not because the parents hate the child, but because fire is, by nature, hot. I formed the world with the structure of truth, and that truth carries its own response. Consequences are the language of reality, not the whip of rage. They whisper, "You are stepping away from what nourishes you. Come home." There was once a man who lived in a realm of light, who heard my voice, yet because of pride walked away from me and chose the path of disobedience. Saul, the first king of Israel, was not hated by me from the beginning. I gave him a throne, opportunities, counselors, and time to understand that power is not domination, but service. When he chose to keep what I had commanded him to destroy, when he sought the applause of people more than obedience to me, I did not immediately pour out fury on him. I sent Samuel not with a sword, but with a word. I offered a way back, not with fire, but with truth. Only when Saul refused that voice did the consequences come. The kingdom departed from him not because I retaliated, but because the path he chose was no longer fit to lead my people. Consequences became the place where he had to face himself, not the place where I crushed his soul. Consequences operate like a long, unbroken rain that makes the earth slide if you keep stripping the forest bare. I do not hurl the rain down to punish you. It is simply the nature of neglect that creates the cracks. When you lie repeatedly, the trust of others withdraws from you, not because I am lurking, eager to punish, but because truth is the foundation of every relationship. When you abuse power, loneliness comes to meet you, not because I desire your collapse, but because power severed from compassion will eventually burn itself out. I do not take good things away just to make you hurt. I simply allow you to see what you have sown. The ground is not barren because I refused the rain, but because you did not tend the soil in the season that was given. Consequences share the same nature as the rhythm of the sea. They crash against the rocky shore not to shatter it, but to smooth its edges. People like to blame the waves, as if they attack. Yet the water is only doing what water has always done, shaping, wearing, refining. I do not send consequences to destroy the soul, but to reshape it when it has grown rigid like stone. I know there are fault lines within you that only the friction of reality can break apart. I use life itself, not sword or spear, to do this work. Consequences are like the still bottom of a lake, reflecting your face in the dark. If you look deep enough, you will see the traces of your past choices, and that very sight will awaken you. I do not need to shout to make you turn around. I only need to let you face the results of your own actions. Often you think that I am silent while you endure consequences, but that silence is not abandonment. I stand beside you like a teacher watching a student redo the exercise they once skipped. I do not intervene to steal away your chance to learn. I let you write, correct, and walk through the awkwardness of realizing where you miscalculated. Consequences are not like the blow of an enemy. They are more like the sigh of a guide. They do not ruin you. They simply clarify what you need to release. If I step in too early, you will assume the cause lies outside yourself. But when I let you see down to the root, when you lay your own hand upon the crack, you will understand, and you will not repeat it. There are moments when I keep quiet not because I have left you, but because your heart needs a still atmosphere to look into its own depths, where every explanation is useless. As long as the world's noise roars around you, your soul hears only what instinct wants to hear, not what it truly needs. I have seen many souls beg me to answer in the midst of noise, then fail to recognize the answer when it does not appear at their chosen moment. I do not shout over the storm within you, because a shout would only cause you to raise one more layer of armor against me. I choose silence the way a carpenter chooses a pause before driving in the final nail, allowing the material to settle, giving time for pressure to disperse. You think silence is abandonment, but it is precisely within that silence that you begin to hear your own heart, and you will see that some fractures cannot be healed with more noise. I am always near, but I do not want our meeting to be drowned out by impatience, by the craving for pleasant words, or by the hunger to be affirmed. It is when you stop, when you cease reacting, when you release the need to prove yourself, that I can lead you back to the place where truth begins to flow like a small stream in a barren desert. The stillness I give is not an empty void, but a wide sky in which your soul can clearly see its own limits. When I am silent, you will try to manage everything in your own strength, to reuse every method that once rescued you. And it is then that you discover those old methods no longer work, not because they were evil, but because they have already completed their task in previous seasons. While the present season demands a different turning point, I am not silent to prove you are useless, but to help you see that your abilities have boundaries, that the wisdom you thought was complete is still missing a part that only growth can provide. When you collide with that boundary and realize you cannot push it any further, your soul begins to loosen its stubbornness, to stop its frantic escape, to turn around and ask, "What have I been overlooking?" That question is not a cry of despair, it is a key that opens the door to understanding. I do not press ready-made answers onto you, because if I did, your heart would only memorize conclusions and never grasp the process. I want you to feel the weight of your choices, to stand before the wall and know to return, not because you are terrified, but because you see there is no place safer than my presence. My silence is not a seal of approval upon your mistakes. I do not stand on the sidelines cheering on your stubbornness, nor do I coldly watch you push yourself deeper into the wasteland. I am silent because you need time to absorb what I have already said. Time for the call to repentance, to sink down and touch the deepest layers of your soul. If I were to answer immediately every time you knocked, your heart would learn to demand rather than to listen. It would chase after instant comfort instead of seeking true transformation. I cannot collaborate with what will shatter your soul, nor can I praise actions that lead to self-destruction. Silence is how I protect you from your own impulses. Many souls assume silence is rejection, but in truth, silence is love, stepping back, creating space, so a confused heart does not have to fight against its own surrender. Space, so you do not lose your dignity when you return. I want you to know that coming back is your decision, not a pressure I force upon you. A heart only truly changes when it realizes for itself where the only safe refuge is. In the quiet, I allow small experiences to become mirrors reflecting your inner world. A single passing glance is sometimes enough for you to see that your direction has been wrong. Things that once gave you confidence suddenly become useless. Plans that seemed solid begin to shake because of one insignificant detail. I do not arrange these moments to shame you, but to help you start asking why the old foundations are no longer stable. I know a soul only changes when it sees the futility of repeating the same patterns, when it realizes that its efforts have not produced life, only dry circles. I do not force you to discard the wisdom you have gathered, but I show you that this wisdom must now be placed within the context of maturity. When you accept that you cannot take even half a step further on your own strength, your heart becomes less resistant to my leading. I do not rush in to pull you back at the very first moment, because a rescue that comes too quickly often creates only a fearful soul, never a strong one. I want you to return with a heart that still holds enough dignity to carry the lesson home. I do not remain silent to test you until you collapse. I am silent so that you may learn to distinguish my voice from the sounds born of pride, of the craving to be seen, of the fear of being forgotten. My voice is not noise, it is the slow breath within stillness. When you have gone far enough along the path of stubbornness and find yourself at the end of a road without light, it is not because I have shut the gate, but because you have walked outside the reach of my light. The gate is still open, but you only notice it when my silence has shattered the illusion that you can control everything by your own power. I wait, not to watch how long you suffer, but to see when you begin to ask the right question, may I come back? In that moment, the silence ends. I do not need to raise my voice. I do not need to prove my power. I only need to touch a heart that has finally bowed. There are consequences that come to you, not to hurl a storm down on your head, but to gently touch your heart exactly where it has gone astray. When you have walked too far from the path of peace, the first thing I allow is not collapse, but a small staggering that makes you stop. You used to think that stopping was failure, but in truth, stopping is the moment you see the footsteps that have fallen out of rhythm with your own soul. The exhaustion, the shortness of breath, the sense of dead end, these are not verdicts against you. They are small lamps placed along the roadside, helping you recognize that you are rushing too quickly into a place where there is no light to guide you. I do not want you to stumble so hard that you break in two. I want you to hesitate just enough to look to the side and see that there is still a gentler road, a road that leads you back toward my breath. If I let the storm strike from the beginning, you would only learn fear, but when I place a light breeze before you, your soul learns discernment. I do not desire to make you hurt. I desire to make you see, not to look at me with begging eyes, but to look back at yourself with the truth you have avoided for so long. When consequences enter your life, they do not usually come with thunder. They come quietly, in the form of a door that closes, an opportunity that passes by, a word that startles you. You will ask yourself why everything that once flowed smoothly suddenly becomes rigid in your hands. You will think I have abandoned you, but in reality, I have only withdrawn the things you were using to force yourself forward in the wrong direction. Constant ease persuades you that you are invincible, and that very belief drives you onto a destructive path without your noticing. So I bring a tender interruption, so that you can feel the gentle collision with your own limits. Limits are reminders that you are not the center, that there is a higher rhythm guiding every step. When you accept that limit, the first thing you recover is not control, but breath. I want you to breathe, not thrash. I want you to sit down, not hurl yourself forward in fear. Only when you choose to stop of your own will do consequences become light instead of chains around your feet. Consequences are never a dungeon. They are the door that opens just when you think you have been locked in. Some souls go all the way to the end of exhaustion and believe all hope has been stolen. Yet that very end becomes the first step of their return. I do not throw the key far away. I place it right beside your pain so you do not have to battle the whole world before you can find your way back. I know your heart only softens when false confidence has melted, when the ideals you built for yourself no longer shield your soul. When you face the results of your choices, do not see them as stains that can never be washed away. See them as a whisper that you are still worth saving. A soul that has been abandoned is never corrected. I correct you because I still believe in you. I lead you into an honest view of yourself, so you may understand that what must change is not the world, but your direction. And when you turn around, I do not demand explanations. I only want to see a heart that has stopped running from the truth, There are times you say you have repented, but that repentance is only a reaction to discomfort. I do not step into that false repentance, because if I did, you would think that emotion alone is enough to change a life. I let time pass a little more, so you can feel the weight of what you have sown. That weight does not crush you, it merely sets you down on solid ground so you will know you are no longer flying through illusion. When your feet touch the ground, your soul can finally stand without trembling. In that moment, you begin to discern what you truly desire and what you cling to only because you fear losing the image you have of yourself. I do not want you to change because you are threatened. I want you to change because you have seen that a better road awaits you. Consequences are a quiet teacher, not a savage guard. They sit at the edge of the table, set a blank page before you, and wait for you to write your own answer. I do not stand behind you to check your response. I stand in front of you, where the light is waiting to meet your eyes. When you begin to understand that consequences are not meant to strike back at you, the fear in your heart will dissolve and be replaced by a gentle stillness. You will no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead, "What is this inviting me into?" That is the moment of recollection, the moment when the soul stops defending itself and starts listening. I do not need you to be strong in that moment. I only need you to be honest. If you weep, let your tears wash away the dust that has clouded your heart's vision. If you feel awkward and unsure, let that awkwardness turn you around to take hold of my hand, still extended toward you. What matters is not how fast you return, but how willing you are in every step. One small step in truth is stronger than all your frantic running in fear. When you move toward me, consequences dissolve in the light, and the pain inside them becomes the seed of wisdom, ready to grow into a peace you have never known. You often imagine my protection as an impenetrable shield, as a strong roof that can cover every discomfort and spare you from all pain. But protection is not building a wall to block every impact. It is placing you where you are safe enough to see yourself most clearly. I do not shield you from the sight of rolling, dark clouds, but I shield you from the lightning that could strike you down in a single breath. I do not allow the fiercest storms to destroy your soul, but I also do not shield you from getting wet if you throw yourself into the lake while the rain still pours. It is not because I do not love you, but because you need to feel the cold water to recognize the direction you are heading. If I erase every sensation, you will never learn the lesson of weight. A soul that does not know it is soaked will never understand what it means to be dry, and a heart that does not know it trembles will never grasp the value of peace. I shield you from what can destroy you, but I do not shield you from what can awaken you. There are truths about yourself that I will not hide away, even when you beg me to cast them into the depths. You want me to wipe away every trace of fear, every habit, every weakness with a single decree. But if I did that, you would repeat what you had never truly understood. I love your soul enough not to let you become someone who has no idea how far they have walked from the light. I let truth enter your life, like sunlight seeping through a window. Even when you pull the curtains closed, you may shut the door, rearrange the room, build new walls of excuses, but the light will still search for a crack your heart has forgotten. Light is not loud. It does not attack. It simply appears and stands still, until you realize you have been staring at yourself in darkness for too long. I do not shove you into confrontation with truth. I simply place the truth before you so that you have the right to choose to look or to turn away. The way you choose decides the path of your soul. It does not decide my love. Understand this. My child, I do not shield you from the moments when your heart must tremble in honesty. When truth touches the wound, you may feel a sharp pain, but that pain is the sign that your inner life is still sensitive, still responsive, not yet turned to stone. If I took away every discomfort, You would grow reckless in self-destruction, for nothing would ever make you stop. I do not want your connection with me to be built on avoiding feeling. I want it built on your courage to look into the hidden folds of your own soul. Truth does not come to shame you. It comes to free you from the night you have grown used to. What you call pain, I call an opportunity to awaken. There are words I whisper not to soothe, but to rouse. They are not thorns, but signs that you are still alive enough to grow. I do not desire you to remain a child who stays in my arms only to avoid reality. I desire you to become a steadfast soul, walking in the light, knowing to whom you belong. You once asked me why I did not intervene sooner, when things had only just begun to drift off course. You once blamed me for letting you go too far, for allowing you to immerse yourself in risky choices and empty promises. I protect you from what would destroy your soul, but I do not protect you from the reflection of yourself, because if I did, you would never learn discernment. I could raise invisible fences around your feet, but fences do not teach you how to walk rightly. They only teach you to fear moving. True protection is not pulling you away from every precipice, but teaching you to look down and know how close you are to the edge. If you never feel the shiver of standing at the cliff's rim, you will never learn to step back before you fall. I let gentle signs appear first, so that your soul notices when the road has begun to curve, not to punish you, but so that you can correct your own steps before the strong wind throws you down. My protection is not a suit of armor that numbs every sensation. It is an umbrella shielding your head from lightning while your feet still wade through puddles, so you may understand what it means to walk on slippery ground. I stretch my shadow over you, but I do not erase your own image under the light. I want you to see yourself in the mirror, not just see me. If the only goal were to avoid pain, you would live by reaction. But if the goal is to grow, you must learn to endure some tremors in peace. I do not hide the truth from you. I simply keep you from the spears that self-deception can forge. A mature soul is not one that has never stumbled, but one that has recognized its true likeness under the light I have placed in its room. And one day you will see that the most beautiful protection I give is not in what I prevent, but in what I allow you to face, so you may learn how to return. You often wish that I would come in and wipe away every scratch left by wrong decisions, like someone cleaning a board until every clumsy line disappears and the surface turns spotless again. But I do not do that, because I know that what is erased too easily becomes what you repeat. If every mistake vanished the moment you cried out, your soul would never see its own shadow in the mirror of time. Never understand why one path weighs on your heart while another feels light as breath. I do not create consequences to humiliate you, nor do I let your falls become a life sentence. I simply allow the ground to respond to your steps so you can hear the rhythm you are carrying, like a potter placing a hand on the spinning wheel, not squeezing the clay harshly to force a shape, but adding just enough pressure so that the clay itself feels where it is warped. I allow small cracks to appear so you can perceive where you are turning off center. A wrong decision becomes an abyss only when you treat it as destiny, but it becomes a compass when you look at it with a heart ready to learn. If I erased every consequence, you would believe wisdom is a privilege granted at random, rather than a maturity quietly forged within you. I am patient with every step, but I do not wipe away every footprint just so you cannot see where you once turned aside. There are consequences as soft as the wind tapping on a window, seemingly unimportant, yet these very tremors become the lessons of a soul still soft enough to change. I allow a careless word to chip a small relationship, not to make you suffer, but to teach you the power of words spoken without care. I let you feel the weariness of running after empty things, not to block your way, but so you realize that true joy is not found in brief bursts of excitement, but in the steady work of a life that builds. If I removed the feeling of disappointment, you would assume that what is unstable can still become a lasting home. I slow you down a step when you choose the shortcut. So, you see that the length of the journey is not an enemy, but a teacher training you to be patient with yourself. Small consequences are like pebbles under your feet. They do not make you collapse, but they are enough to make you look down and adjust your posture. If I picked up every stone from your path, you would never learn to place your feet firmly, and you would be fragile when you finally face a real slope. Consequences are not a sign that I have distanced myself from you. They are proof that I see you learning, growing, crossing from naivete into understanding. A child who has only ever run on dry, even ground will never learn how to keep balance when the road of life becomes uneven. I allow you to encounter impacts that are safe enough for your soul to recognize its limits, to discover where more learning is needed. Not so you will live in fear. I do not intervene to erase the price of every choice, because if I did, you would come to believe that every mistake is harmless, and you would repeat them, unaware that you are building your house on sand. I do not want you to become a soul that only waits for miracles to repair things. I want you to be a soul that discerns before it steps. My love is not a cloth thrown over every trace. It is the lamp that shows you where you have touched, where you have pushed too hard, and where you must let go. When you begin to see the echoes in your own life, you start to understand that the value of a right choice is not the praise it receives, but the long peace it brings. There are those who ask me why they did not receive intervention the moment they lost their way, why I did not bring them back before they slipped. I look at them with compassion and tell them that intervention too early would weaken the soul, like a painting finished by the teacher's hand, while the student walks away believing in their own talent. I do not want you to live by borrowed answers. I want you to learn to look at your life like someone reading a half-written page, where each line leads you into the next chapter. You are now mature enough to understand. If I intervene too much, you will become a person dependent on miracles, always waiting for my hand to appear instead of letting your feet walk. But if I let gentle consequences surround you, you will learn to choose with wisdom, with peace, with an awareness of what truly nourishes your soul. I allow haste to bring fatigue, greed to expose emptiness, flattery to unveil deceit. Not so you will come to despise life, but so you will see clearly that what is truly beautiful does not need to rush, does not need to perform, does not need to be dressed up to become trustworthy. One day you will see that consequences are not an enemy, but a quiet guide. They do not arrive to condemn you, but to point out the path you can still return to reveal what you need to release, to show the limits you thought you had surpassed, but in truth had never walked beyond with endurance. If I erased all consequences, you would never understand what it means to cherish, to give thanks, to build something lasting with your own hands. You would assume that abundance is merely a gift, not a season I cultivate through every seed of perseverance. I allow consequences to be a whisper in your life, not a roar, because I long for change to flow from insight, not from panic. The most beautiful maturity is the kind the soul chooses, not the kind forced upon it by fear. And only when you understand why one choice leads to peace while another leads to heaviness will you truly know how to treasure the light I set before you. You often think that my love must be a wall that blocks every mistake, a protective shell that keeps you from ever feeling pain. But my love does not build a glass cage, it opens the road home. If I kept you in the illusion of safety, you would pass through life like one who sleeps, always believing that every return comes without awareness. My love is not an anesthetic that dulls your soul. I do not lull you with indulgence. I lead you with the light that quietly remains in the darkness you choose to walk through. The image of a bridge crossing a stream is my message to you. The bridge does not prevent you from touching the water. It simply gives you a safe path to cross. But if you insist on swimming outside it, The water will still wrap itself around your body. My presence is not a coat that covers every consequence, but a road laid before you so that you do not lose your way. I do not force you to walk the bridge. I simply build it with steadfast love, so that whenever you are weary, you know there is a path already waiting. And when you reject the bridge and plunge into the water, I do not smother you with a storm. I let the current remind you that the way home is never closed. There are times when you think, I am heartbroken because of the steps you take running away from me. But I am not wounded because you leave me. I am wounded because you have left yourself. I look at your soul like the father in the story of the child who went far away, not running to seize you, not binding you with chains, only watching with eyes that know pain, yet are full of hope. I am patient so that you may understand that freedom does not lie in wastefulness, but in returning to the place where you know you belong. I do not lock the gates to punish you. I leave them open in the rain, because I know that when you grow tired in the wind and the cold, you will remember the shelter where the roof is dry. I take no pleasure in counting your wrong steps. I find peace in the moment you turn around, even if it is only a hesitant glance. Returning needs no explanation, no proof, only the first breath of honesty. I do not ask how much you have lost. I ask whether you are willing to step through the door I have always kept open. Homecoming is not a verdict. It is the song of my heart calling you back. My love is guidance, not control. If I kept you inside boundless safety, you would never learn how to choose the light. I do not make the world soft so you may walk through it without care. I set boundaries so you may know what brings life and what erodes the soul. When you step outside those boundaries, I do not angrily throw stones at you. I fall silent so you may hear your own heart more clearly. You will feel emptiness when you cling to what does not nourish you. You will feel exhaustion when you chase false lights. And in those moments you will realize that I have always been there. Not with a whip, but with a clean cloth, not with judgment, but with an outstretched hand. Returning is the journey of the heart, not a countdown clock. If I saved you from every confusion the moment it arose, you would think that wrong paths and right paths are no different, and your soul would lose the ability to discern when you are exhausted by the roads you built yourself. I do not arrive to shatter the world you are defending. I simply place a small wooden chair in front of you so you may sit. I know that fatigue has its own language. It teaches you what ease never could. I do not pull you from the abyss with a shout. I call you with peace. Come home. My love does not break because of your reckless steps. It only slows so you may catch up with yourself. Not every rainstorm is fury. Sometimes it is the sound of falling water, telling the soul that its coat is not warm enough. I look at your return not with eyes of accusation, but with eyes of recognition. You are tired, and you have understood. In that understanding, love has accomplished part of its deepest work, not in making you submit, but in making you willingly choose me. My love does not keep you in the illusion that pain will never touch you, because if it did, you would become a fragile soul, collapsing before every breeze. I do not shield you from everything. I lead you through everything. I do not drain the water from the stream so your feet never get wet. I build the bridge so you may know a reliable path exists. But if you abandon the bridge and dive into the current, I let you feel the cold so you remember the warmth your feet once knew. My love does not hide reality. It teaches you that returning is not shame, but the triumph of a soul that has overcome its own complacency. And when you step onto the bridge, trembling, I do not ask why you fell. I simply match my steps to yours. You think that return must come with thunder and the sky dividing open. But I stand at the porch, a dry coat in hand, saying softly, I have always waited for you. Sometimes you see disappointment as a final seal, as if a door slammed against the earth has left your soul without air. But disappointment is not eternal darkness. It is a small lamp placed at your feet to answer one question: what are you expecting? I do not allow disappointment to hurt you. I allow it so your heart may weigh the things you place in the hands of others, in circumstances, or in dreams you do not yet understand. When you hope for a result born of haste, I stretch the silence so you may realize that journeys are not measured by speed, but by the endurance of the soul. You once thought expectation was proof of your worth, your strength, that what you desire must arrive on your schedule. But true expectation is not forcing reality to submit. It is the act of believing that what is good needs time to take shape. When you dream of beautiful things that your heart is not yet ready to tend, I let the dream rest like a seed that has not cracked, so you may learn to be a gardener before you become a harvester. In disappointment, you begin to distinguish between desire and calling, between fleeting glory and a life that can nourish the soul over the long journey. I do not erase disappointment from your days, for if I did, you would live like the wind, always drifting toward what feels pleasant, and never learning where the enduring shelter of the soul truly is. Disappointment is a lesson about where expectations should rest, not a judgment on your worth. When you place your expectations on people, I allow their changeability to remind you that human hearts shift with the seasons they are living through. When you place expectations on circumstances, I allow unexpected turns to show you that life is not built according to maps you draw, but by the currents I arrange in secret. I do not let anyone satisfy you forever, because I know that temporary crutches would make you forget how to stand on your own feet. If you rely only on praise, on approval, on eyes that nod in agreement, I permit moments of silence to visit you so that you may understand peace is not found in applause, but in the steady presence you discover when you turn to me. Disappointment does not come to condemn, it comes to ask you, whom are you seeking when you cling tightly to expectations of others? I use disappointment to loosen the taut strings around your soul, so you may realize that no human hand can hold your heart as fully as I can. I watch you weep with gentleness, not because you are weak, but because you are relearning the first language of the soul, the language of returning. In disappointment, you often imagine that I have gone away, but it is in those very moments that I am closer to you than at any other time. I do not rush in to erase every crack, because I want you to see that fractures are not the end, they are the openings through which light enters. When you stand before a dream that has been delayed, I do not take the dream from your hands. I simply draw it away from the grasp of urgency and place it within the reach of maturity. I know there are disappointments you carry not because you were wrong, but because you placed your expectations in a season that had not yet arrived. A seed sown into the ground does not die, it only rests. And within that stillness, life begins. If I force it to break open before its time, the sapling will be fragile, and even a single gust of wind would break it. But if I give it time, its roots will descend, and when it rises above the earth, it will rise with endurance. Disappointment is a reminder that what you desire is not always ready for who you are today, but it may be prepared for a deeper version of you. And I am patient not because I want you to suffer, but because I see what you cannot yet see, who you are becoming during the waiting. You think disappointment comes because reality refuses to satisfy your desire, but sometimes disappointment comes to protect you from what you do not yet understand. I will allow a door to close so that your heart will not walk into a room filled with erosion. I will allow a promise to pass by so your soul will not bind itself to something beautiful only when seen from a distance. You will not understand this on the first day, and I do not ask you to understand immediately. I only ask that you do not confuse disappointment with abandonment. I never abandon your soul. Even when you abandon yourself, when you sigh over something that is broken apart, I gently place my hand upon your shoulder and remind you that brokenness is not a stone crushing your heart. It is an invitation to learn how to rebuild with stronger materials. If I allowed you to have everything you want at the very moment you want it, you would never learn the strength of slowing down, listening, and honoring the rhythms that carry my breath. Disappointment does not make you a failure. The way you view disappointment will determine whether you become a fragile soul or a mature one. A misguided expectation lifts the soul like a balloon, and a single needle is enough to make it collapse. But a rightly placed expectation is like a stone beneath the water, no matter how the current shifts. It keeps its weight. I do not tell you to extinguish your dreams. I tell you to place them on the ground, not on foam. I do not want you to live in fear of everything you long for. I want you to learn how to long correctly, long for what nourishes you. Long for what allows your soul to blossom rather than burn out. Let disappointment teach you to stop searching in the wrong places and begin searching in the true ones. When you understand this, you will see that disappointment is no longer a chasm, but another path leading you back to me, where peace does not depend on outcomes, but on the one who holds your hand. You often mistake acceptance for surrender, as though when you cannot change something you are forced to bow your head. But the acceptance I teach is not submission. It is the mature step of a soul that trusts I see farther than you do. Acceptance does not ask you to discard your dreams. It invites you to release the obsession of controlling everything according to your own timetable. I know you have tried again and again to force your circumstances by applying more effort, more noise, more speed. And when it did not work, you assumed you had failed. Yet true failure does not lie in what has not arrived, but in the moment you conclude that I am no longer there. Acceptance is when you pause long enough to see that a closed door is not a sign of rejection, but an invitation for your soul to learn calmness in the night. You do not need to see the entire destination. You only need to trust that the value of the journey is not erased simply because today does not look as you imagined. When you learn to accept without withdrawing, your heart no longer collides against walls of helplessness, but relaxes enough to recognize that I have never stopped walking beside you. There are circumstances you want to push away by sheer will, yet they stand firm before you like a stone. And when your efforts cannot break them, you begin to believe you are useless. I do not permit you to shatter every rock, because I want you to know what it feels like to walk around it, to learn how to observe calmly, to find the path without destruction. If everything you knocked on opened in response to your hand, you would never learn how to listen for the knocks I am placing gently upon the door of your soul, guiding you toward another road. Acceptance is the courage to say, I do not understand everything, but I still trust there is meaning beyond what I can see. When you cling to what refuses to move, your heart slowly turns to stone, but when you open your hand, the energy of life finds its way once again between your fingers. I do not ask you to accept injustice. I ask you to put down the relentless resistance that is eroding your soul. You imagine that fighting is a sign of strength, but sometimes true strength lies in knowing when to stop battling reality and listen to what I have been whispering for so long. Acceptance does not kill your dreams. It widens their trajectory according to my perspective. There are pieces you have tried to force into the puzzle of your life, believing that if you press hard enough, the seams will disappear. But the curves and surfaces of the soul cannot be bent by force. I have watched you suffer in attempts to become someone you are not, simply because you thought it would please others. And when that approval never came, you called it failure. But that failure is only a signal calling you back to honesty, where dreams no longer survive on the gaze of others, but are nourished by me. When you accept that some seasons are not meant for breakthroughs, your heart will no longer tear itself between effort and exhaustion, but will know how to rest in order to return stronger. Acceptance is not the end of action. It is the adjustment of direction so that you may walk into the light I have prepared. I do not want you to become one who submits to circumstances. I want you to become one who knows how to listen to timing. I know you fear that acceptance means losing yourself, that you will become someone who gives up. someone who drifts along only because they no longer have the strength to resist. But acceptance takes away only the useless resistance. Perseverance remains in your hands. When you understand this, you will realize that acceptance is the restoration of balance, not the abandonment of desire. A soul that accepts can still dream, but it dreams with a long gaze, not with trembling hands driven by greed. I do not erase the longing within you. I only brush away the dust of panic so you may see where the true calling lies. There may be times when you begin again from the very place where you once thought you had failed. But this time it will not be to prove yourself. It will be because you desire to walk into peace. If you know how to accept without losing faith, you will learn the fullness of the journey, no longer chasing immediate victory, but seeking endurance within your own heart. Acceptance is the bridge between your heart and mine, where you no longer demand that I meet your conditions in order to believe that I am with you. When you accept, you are saying, I trust that your hand is working beyond my sight. In that place, your soul stops searching for answers in every corner and begins listening to peace that speaks without words. I do not ask you to understand every reason. I only ask one thing. Do not confuse my silence with abandonment. You are not locked in darkness. You are being led through a bend in the path where the sun has not yet risen. No journey becomes great without a moment of acceptance. For it is acceptance that expands the capacity of the heart to receive the greater good you are not yet ready to carry. And when you learn to walk with me in humility, you will see that acceptance does not make you smaller, it makes you deeper. Faith does not begin when you feel strong, but when you are so weak that there is only one choice left to place your step toward me, even though your eyes cannot yet see the shore. Faith is not the pleasant feeling that comes when you hold evidence in your hands. Faith is the small act of a soul that understands the light is not behind you, but waiting in the step ahead. When you stand before a mist-covered road, your heart usually asks, where are you? But I remain there, not with display or grandeur, but with quiet steadfastness. I do not ask if you are ready. I only ask, are you willing to step? Because the first step is always trembling. But only when you lift your foot off the ground does trembling turn into rhythm. Faith is not a gift dropped into your hand in a peaceful night. It is the gentle acceptance that not everything you seek will appear before you move. If I were to show you the whole journey, you would no longer need faith, you would walk by calculation. And the soul was created to believe, not to measure safety. Faith grows from decisions that seem too small to matter, one breath that holds calm when your heart is in turmoil, one word withheld when someone comes at you with thorns, one step taken, even though the rope of doubt is wrapped around your chest. That action is the whisper no one hears. I do not understand, but I trust. I do not require you to walk far. I only want you to place your foot close enough for me to walk beside you. Faith is not a leap up a ladder. It is a path slowly emerging under your heels, only when you dare to place your body upon the ground. When you demand evidence, you build a fence between spirit and life, forcing me to become a riddle solver rather than the rhythm of your heart. But when you choose to believe, you are not walking into darkness, you are walking into a land where the sun has not risen. Yet my light is already waiting. Do not wait until your heart feels safe before you step, because true safety does not come before the act, it follows surrender. Trust is the language of the soul, not the discipline of the intellect. The mind always wants control, wants a map, wants milestones, while the soul only needs the certainty that I do not abandon. When you ask why, I have not answered. I respond by placing a door before you instead of giving an explanation. For faith is not formed from information. It is born from the collision between your fear and my peace. There will be days when you step forward with a trembling heart, shaking hands, and dry lips, and I see that courage as greater than any victory acclaimed by the world. For people only count what has already happened. I count what you dared to do when the reward was still unseen. Faith is not measured by the sound of trumpets in triumph, but by the quiet breath in which you decide not to turn your back even while you still do not understand. I am present in the steps no one applauds or records, yet they are the foundation upon which your whole life stands. You often think that faith is a solid emotion, a bright optimism like a spring morning. But true faith does not need sunlight to exist. Faith knows how to stand in fog, how to lie in darkness, how to endure pain without surrender. I do not ask whether you feel strong, because strength does not lie in feeling, it lies in choice. When you choose to act rightly even with a heavy heart, that is when faith is being woven within your soul. I see every thread thin, fragile, easily overlooked. But it is these threads that form the shelter above you on days of heavy rain. Faith is learning how to place yourself into a future that has not yet arrived, but is already held in my hands. You do not believe because you know. You believe because you know that I stand ahead of you, even when you cannot yet see me with your eyes. Like a student placing pen upon a blank page, not knowing which words will appear but believing they can learn. So too do you. You write each line of your life with faith, not with perfection. I know your fear when you walk forward with no guarantee. Afraid everything will fail. Afraid you will be alone. Afraid you will regret it. But you never walk alone in faith. For faith is your step into a path I have already walked. When you cannot see me, it is not because I have left. It is because I am standing a few steps ahead so you have a place to set your feet. Every time you lift your foot from the ground of doubt, you open a door you could not see from behind. Every time you refuse to retreat in fear, you break a chain you once believed was destiny. Faith does not require perfection, it only requires honesty. I am not confident, but I will still walk. And when your soul speaks this, I smile, because I know you have touched the heart of faith, not the flame that bursts, but the ember that keeps warmth through the long night. You still think of time as the road you run through, where each mistake drags you backward and each success pushes you forward. But in my eyes, time is the rhythm I place in your soul, so you know when to pause, when to breathe, when to recognize what is growing in the dark. I do not push you like someone chasing spotlights. I walk with you like a sower passing through seasons, knowing no seed that rushes to sprout will ever grow strong. When you call upon me to hasten everything, you see only the destination, while I see the inner structures that will collapse if you arrive too soon. My patience is not cold silence. It is the heartbeat of a father who knows his child is not yet ready to carry the weight of what they ask for. I withhold some answers not to make you doubt, but to help you see you are not yet deep enough to hold the blessing that waits. For a blessing that arrives out of season becomes a burden, while a blessing that comes when you are mature becomes a source of life. There are paths you think I have closed, but they are simply doors not yet in season to open. Like fruit pressed too soon on a branch, pick it early and it is bland. Let it rest in the sun and it will sweeten. You see delay as failure, while I see it as the groundwork that teaches restraint, discernment, and how not to trade your soul for speed. When you see your friends advancing, when you see doors opening for others quickly, your heart churns like a swollen river, seeking to break its banks, seeking to prove itself worthy. But those who understand the seasons do not send sudden rain to show their strength. They wait for the rain to arrive at the right time so the seed does not drown. I am not hurried, because I do not measure success by moments. I measure it by what you still carry after the season has passed. Swift glory teaches you nothing, but waiting teaches you more than the earliest victory ever could. My rhythm is not meant to make your life harder, but to save you from your own haste. Think of the beating of a heart not so fast that you suffocate, not so slow that life fades, but steady, persistent, repeating without exhaustion. Your soul is the same. If you live according to the rhythm of the world, soaring in exhilaration one moment, collapsing into despair, the next, you will become a victim of your own emotions and lose the ability to hear me. But if you learn to pause like a great tree that knows how to enter winter sleep, gathering its sap into its core, waiting for the sun to return in the right season, you will see that new shoots push through the soil without struggle. I do not want you to harvest fruit through panic. I want you to bear fruit through the stillness that has been patiently cultivated. The time I give you is not an empty gap. It is the mold in which the rough edges of your being are shaped until they are soft enough to love and strong enough to stand. You often ask, "Have you forgotten me?" when your dream has not yet been fulfilled. But you forget that some prayers must take root before they can sprout. I do not open doors you do not yet have the inner strength to walk through. I protect you from what you do not understand. If you receive glory too early, it will consume you in pride. If you receive responsibility too late, it will paralyze you. I know the precise moment when your heart stops seeking applause and begins seeking purpose. When you no longer ask when, but ask why when that question changes. You step from being a child who wants to prove themselves into a child who desires to serve. And in that moment, my timing no longer appears as an obstacle, but as a window opening to the wind, letting your soul breathe deeply with gratitude. My patience is not a space for you to delay wrongdoing, but the place where you recognize a wound before it becomes too deep. I allow you to walk a few steps down the wrong path, not to abandon you, but so you will understand the exhaustion of resisting the light. When your feet begin to ache from the stones, when your heart becomes parched because there is no water to soothe it, you turn back not because I force you, but because you recognize I have been waiting. This is the rhythm of sacred time. I do not pull you with a rope. I guide you with gentle longing. Every return is beautiful when it is chosen, not coerced. I know every season you need, every rain that must soften the soil, every stretch of sunlight required for the fruit to reach its sweetness. I know when you still have strength to learn, and when you simply need my embrace. You cannot see the entire composition, you only hear each beat. But I am the one who wrote the song before your first cry was ever heard. You think patience is merely waiting until what you want happens, as if standing in front of a closed door, hoping it will open if you behave well. But to me, patience is the space where your soul adjusts its breathing, where your heart learns to look deeper instead of faster. I do not extend time to test your endurance. I extend time so you may realize that you once treated life like a race, while I see it as a garden that needs tending. When you only seek the finish line, you treat every delay as a barrier. But when I lead you through slow seasons, I am teaching you that nothing lasting is ever born from haste. The strongest roots always grow in the dark, where no one sees them, where you cannot boast, where only you and I remain, facing the questions you once avoided. In that patience, I do not ask you to be silent so that you may endure, but so that you may hear your own heart, distinguishing ambition from calling, fear from longing, and the desire I planted in you from the start. When you learn to separate them, your life's journey is no longer a race against others' shadows, but the forward movement of a soul returning to its purpose. Maturity does not come when you are given strength, but when you know how not to lose yourself in weakness. I have seen you longing for your prayers to be answered instantly because you thought the answer proved my love, but I teach you that it is delay that reveals the true character of a heart. A child cries for toys, but an adult waits and learns to care for what they already have. Patience teaches you not to demand the world to serve you. Maturity teaches you that you are not the center of it. When slowing begins, you may feel frustrated, believing everything is moving against your desire. But in that moment, I am asking you only one question. Can you trust me enough to keep walking without fireworks to guide you? Without applause to validate you? Without spotlight declaring you right, if you can walk the path that belongs to you without the need to prove anything? You have crossed the threshold of maturity. I do not need you to be stronger than everyone else. I simply want you to be steady enough not to destroy what I am building within you. There are seasons when you think you are standing still. But if you look closely, you will see that you have already changed. Not in the ways the world celebrates promotion, wealth, or superiority, but in the ways I recognize clearly. You respond less out of haste. You react less from woundedness. You no longer measure your worth by others. These are the steps of growth that receive no applause. Yet heaven sees them vividly. I do not measure your growth by achievements displayed. I measure it by how you confront yourself when no one is watching. Metal is not tempered by sunlight, but by the furnace. The soul is not made resilient by praise, but by silent hours in which you learn to keep inner peace. My patience is the place where you experience small disappointments without being devoured by them. Small stumbles that warn you of the wrong direction without waiting until everything collapses. I do not throw you into the storm. I let you feel the gentle winds first. So when the strong winds arrive, you will not panic like a child who has never seen rain. Maturity is not when you no longer stumble, but when you know how to rise without needing enemies or victims to blame. When praise no longer makes you lose yourself. When criticism no longer shatters you. When failure no longer erases your worth. That is the sign I have woven patience into your very bones. In the moments you endure the slow pace of the process, you think you are being tested, but in truth, you are learning how to reinforce your foundation before you build the upper floors. I do not want you to step into a position your inner self cannot sustain. I do not crown roofs built without pillars. You see waiting as delay. I see it as foundation. The deeper the foundation, the more firmly the house endures the years. That is why I am patient to a degree that makes you think I am silent. I do not build what will collapse. I only build what can endure. The transformation from patience to maturity is like groundwater flowing beneath the earth. No one sees how each centimeter moves. No one hears the stone slowly worn away. But one day the stream appears. You do not notice the exact moment when your heart learns to love without demanding, when your mouth stops seeking excuses, when your eyes begin to view others with compassion rather than comparison. But I know, I witness every small change like a potter placing his hands on the clay. Not once, but many times, each touch gentle, yet enough to shape it. You only see the long stretches of waiting, but I see every new curve on the soul. Maturity is not the result of a single moment of revelation. It is every hurt endured without losing tenderness, every pain crossed without letting it turn you bitter, every silent season survived with the ability to love still intact. Patience is the doorway that leads you into maturity. You cross it not with roaring triumph, but with the quiet calming of the heart. When you begin to realize that my patience is not an empty space for you to test your limits, but the soil I till so your heart has time to grow roots. You will no longer walk as someone trembling before punishment, but as one who cherishes every breath still given. I do not ask you to live like a sentinel, guarding against storms, seeing everything through fear of mistakes. I ask you to live like one who has learned the value of light, and therefore is careful not to let darkness swallow its small rays. Like a candle burning in a closed room, you do not protect it because you are afraid of the wind. You protect it because you know the light is not infinite. It needs guarding, shelter, and stillness to endure. The light within your soul is the same. It does not die from a single gust, but it fades through prolonged neglect, through thoughts such as, "There's still time. There's still a chance. God will forgive me anyway." I never cease forgiving, but the light in you weakens if you continually step outside the place of protection. Like a flame left on the porch, not because I blow it out, but because the winds of life erode what you refuse to guard. Living carefully is not living inside a glass cage. It is knowing that the gifts I give you are not toys to be tested. The one who holds a precious stone does not squeeze it tightly out of fear of being robbed. They cradle it gently because they know its value cannot be replaced. You will understand this after you have gone through enough seasons of loss to know that there are gifts which, once shattered, cannot be restored by apologies or regret, only by a long journey of returning to yourself. I do not want you to panic every time you falter. I want you to be mindful so you do not waste the opportunities I have opened. For my patience is not the sentence. Keep going. I will intervene when it becomes too much. But the gentle reminder, listen, adjust, return before your heart grows numb. When you live with that spirit, you no longer use time as a knife to carve into your ego, but as the fabric slowly weaving the soul into maturity. Some say to me, if you truly love me, why don't you always remove the consequences? But it is precisely love that keeps me from intervening every time you stumble. If I constantly shield you so you never feel even a slight slip, you would forever believe that every path is harmless, that every choice can be undone. You need small collisions to grasp the seriousness of great choices. Like a hand lightly brushing a flame and learning its heat so that it will not plunge into fire. I do not throw you into storms to teach you. I simply allow the wind to pass through the window so you can grasp the fragility of the light burning. If you understand this, you will know how to place your hand as a shield, not because you fear the darkness, but because you treasure the light entrusted to you. True carefulness is born from gratitude, not fear. When you are grateful for the opportunities I give, you will learn to slow your steps so you do not trample them under ambition or pride. You do not need to run to prove you are strong. You only need to walk with the awareness that every step is your answer to my patience. The one who truly understands the value of a gemstone is not the one who flaunts it for attention, but the one who keeps it safe from those who would treat it carelessly. My patience is that gemstone. And when you understand this, you will not use it to test my limits, but to fortify yourself. I do not want you to kneel before fear. I want you to stand upright in reverence for the sacred gift given to you once again. My child, when you are grateful for the time I have given you, you will learn to close the wrong doors before they consume your heart. You will pause not because you tremble, but because you are wise. You will choose truth, not because you fear that lies will be exposed, but because you know deception erodes the soul. You will accept correction not because you fear punishment, but because you understand that every correction is an invitation to live better, love better, and become more yourself. When my patience becomes the light by which you examine yourself, the carefulness within you will no longer be a fence of restriction, but a quiet roof shielding the seed preparing to break the soil. When you begin to live carefully because you understand the value of the opportunities I give, you will discover that the maturity of the soul never ends with self-preservation. I do not mold candles to light only one corner of a room. I give flame to dispel the darkness where other trembling feet walk. A mature soul knows its light is not a symbol of superiority, but an invitation telling others they need not fear the night. I have seen those who walk before you. They are steady not because they never fell, but because every fall taught them how to be gentle with those who come after. True maturity does not use experience as a staff to strike the weak, but as a staff to help the fallen rise from the ground. When you understand my patience, you no longer ask, how do I rise above, but begin to ask, how can I slow down so no one is left behind in that moment? Your heart breaks free from the lock of selfishness and becomes part of the life I long to build through you. There will be people you meet along the road who stumble over the same mistakes you once made. who slow down under burdens you once carried, who walk in darkness through seasons you have already endured. You will feel the urge to push them faster, to pull them upward, the way an impatient person yanks a young sprout from the soil to see how tall it has grown. But I will place my hand on you and whisper, the result is never greater than the root. You cannot make them grow through your impatience. You help them grow by giving them the time I once gave you. Remember, when you still did not know how to listen, I did not slam the door shut. I patiently allowed your heart to feel its own pain while wandering, then returned because it longed for peace. I did not force you to confess in humiliation. I let you realize the truth in silence. That is why, when you begin to gain strength, I ask you to use it to protect the weak, not to prove superiority. For true maturity always knows how to slow its steps so another soul has time to breathe, to regain balance, to understand what it has not yet learned. Maturity is not standing above others and looking down on those still hesitant. It is knowing that everyone has their own pace in learning their lessons. I do not force the eucalyptus to grow at the pace of wildflowers. Each species learns to live according to the nature I placed within it. You are not a strict teacher over another's time. You are merely someone who knows that my time is wide enough to heal even souls who have been lost far longer than you realized. When you grow impatient with someone's pace, you unknowingly repeat the way you once viewed life, turning every mistake into a personal failure. But when you learn to step back, to soften your heart, to speak less, that is not weakness. It is respect for the process I am carrying out within another person. You do not need to teach them. You only need not extinguish their candle when it has barely begun to burn. I can breathe upon that flame in my own appointed time. You only need to keep your hand from the winds of judgment. There are moments when I place a wounded person before you, not so that you may prove your wisdom, but so that you may remember what it felt like when you, yourself, had only a final glimmer of light left. You once held my precious stone patience, opportunity, gentle reminders in your hands, and you dropped it, sometimes out of carelessness, sometimes out of stubbornness. I did not break your hands when the stone touched the ground. I simply knelt beside you and showed you the small crack, not to punish you, but to help you understand that next time it must be held with both hands, with tenderness, not with the assumption there will always be another chance. When you learn how to care for what has been entrusted to you, I entrust you with something greater, another soul you must not damage. The mature do not pick up the gem and shout at the one who dropped it. They place it gently into the trembling palm and say, "Try again. This time softer." That is how I have dealt with you many times. And that is how I expect you to deal with those who are still searching for their way. Maturity is not walking a flawless path, but understanding that every choice radiates outward beyond yourself, like ripples spreading from a pebble tossed into a lake. When you know that consequences are not retaliation, but the cord pulling the soul back toward the light, you will be cautious with your words, not because you fear being wrong, but because you understand that a harsh sentence can kill the seed of hope sprouting in a fragile heart. When you are patient with the mistakes of others, you reflect my patience. When you honor their small steps, you mirror the joy I once felt for you in your earliest weakness. When you do not use superiority to impose yourself, but use experience to shelter, that is the moment you stand in the role of a builder, not a judge. My child, do not measure your maturity by the distance you have moved ahead of struggling souls, but by the distance you are willing to walk backward to meet them. I did not call you to myself to create ranks and tiers. I called you to extend your arms into a long embrace over other souls. You will truly feel mature when you know that you not only hold the precious stone but know how to pass on its light properly, not by throwing it into someone's eyes, but by placing it gently into their hands with the whisper, "This is what I learned in the dark." You are not perfect. You are simply someone who understands that the patience I have given you is a gift, not to be wasted recklessly. When you live this way, You will become a refuge others can turn to, not because you are strong, but because they sense a rhythm in your calmness, a rhythm I have planted in your soul. And when that happens, you will understand that maturity is never a solitary journey, but a shared path where light is passed hand to hand, not hoarded by the one who walked a little earlier. Now pray as follows, Lord. Place within me eyes that recognize that your kindness is not a void in which I may prolong my mistakes, but a doorway opened so I may calmly look back at myself. When I am tempted to treat mercy as an excuse to delay, let my heart understand that every day you remain patient is a day I can still return before things become too late. Lord, grant me humility to remember that I am made of fragility, so I will not deceive myself with the garment of false confidence. When I feel defeated, help me not drown in self-condemnation, but know that you have seen through me since the beginning and still patiently wait for growth within me. Lord, free my mind from the fear of facing the truth. When the things I avoid begin knocking at the door of my soul, give me the courage to look directly at them, not to condemn myself, but to unlock the shackles of pretense that have held my spirit captive for too long. Lord, teach me the meaning of silence that comes from you. Do not let me mistake silence as the end of love, but as a space for the noise within me to settle, for the explanations I try to invent to cease, and for me to begin hearing what truly needs to be heard. Lord, teach me to distinguish your patience from your approval. When I stubbornly defend what I know is wrong, do not let me lull myself with comfortable silence, but turn my heart toward recognizing the moment I have crossed the safe boundary. Lord, teach me to notice the gentle consequences you allow before they become too heavy to save. When I stumble in small things, help me understand that it is not punishment, but a soft warning to correct my direction before the storm arrives. Lord, grant me strength to stand up after every misstep, not because I have proven anything, but because you still keep the door open for me to begin again. When a small success makes me feel grand, remind me that only steady faithfulness builds the road, not a single moment of brilliance. Lord, open my eyes to see that true change does not come from force, but from recognizing what is draining my soul. When I strain to appear strong, pull me back to the place where I can be honest with myself, so I may understand that transformation begins with the truth I acknowledge, not with the fear of being judged. Lord, let me understand the nature of consequences. Do not let me see them as cruel retaliation, but as a mirror reflecting what I have sown. When I touch the boundary of pain, let me neither rebel nor flee, but bow my head, reflect, and choose the path of return. Lord, keep me from pride before it hardens my soul. When I begin hiding mistakes behind countless explanations, bring me back to the place of honesty, so I may know that solutions are not found in building more armor, but in dismantling the walls I have raised. Lord, help me learn how to hear warnings in peace, instead of only reacting when storms strike me down. When I repeatedly ignore small signals, awaken me with mercy before my heart becomes harder than stone. Lord, instill within me the readiness to return at the first moment I realize I have gone astray. Do not let me wait until pain becomes a prison before seeking a way out. Let me know that returning is not failure, but a reverent response to the love that has patiently waited for me along the way. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and enable notifications so that together we can build a strong community of faith.